Now, the current political landscape in South Africa is fertile for the spreading of misinformation during election season. This emerged during a dialogue session hosted by the Information Regulator, the Electoral Commission and Media Monitoring Africa in Johannesburg. Now, this dialogue focused on the spread of misinformation and disinformation during the election period.
With election day looming closer, information becomes key in allowing voters to make informed decisions. That's the view of panelists discussing the implications of misinformation and disinformation during a dialogue session hosted by the Information Regulator.
Voters can either be afraid to go and vote, so it can bring the numbers of people voting down, but it can also impact on the credibility of elections.
There are various entities targeted by misinformation during different phases of the election, including the Electoral Commission and the media.
Journalists in the media also are not immune. Sometimes we've seen a lot of disinformation campaigns actually targeting journalists that actually are giving out truthful and credible information.
The South African National Editors Forum says procedures have been put in place to protect journalists while reporting on the 2024 elections.
As an organization, we are always worried about the safety of journalists, particularly women journalists, and the spread of misinformation and disinformation across social media platforms is quite rife.
The IEC says its responsibility, as well as that of political parties and electoral stakeholders, is to ensure that the wider South African electorate is clued up on election procedures and information to ensure fair elections.
We have a duty to ensure free and fair elections. Free and fair elections mean that persons must understand the electoral process, they must know who's eligible to vote, and how the voting process works. It is a big task.
The dialogue comes after some political parties raised concerns about misinformation and voter education heading into the 29th May polls. Zara Groenewald, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Right, let's expand on this discussion. To discuss the proliferation, of misinformation and its effect on the democratic exercise. We're now joined by Acting Director General at the Department of Government Communication and Information System, Nomonde Mnukwa. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time and welcome to the late edition. Understanding the nature of misinformation and disinformation is critical if a remedy is to be found on how to resolve it. How best can it be explained, more so in the context of South Africa's elections, because we know it can take on many forms?
Good evening, Mpo and the viewers. It really can take many forms, and unfortunately, the consequences are very serious, particularly to our hard-earned democracy. Because generally you'd have mistrust created on people unnecessarily. Some of them, they will be in a panic state and anxiety, but also it might create unnecessary conflict. Then you find yourself in a society whereby there's conflict that is being created intentionally. However, the perpetrators are preying on the vulnerability of the people. And therefore, we try to create as government as much awareness as possible to the public, because we would like the public that they know, first of all, that their rights are protected by the Constitution, and therefore they have their freedom, but also we have a responsibility to protect their freedom. Secondly, we also would like that the public be aware that there are legislations in South Africa that regulate particularly the malicious communication. And therefore, it is imperative that the public be aware so that they can protect themselves as well. On the other hand, particularly we have a legislation that we call Cyber Crimes Act that governs the malicious communication, particularly on online platforms and in the cyberspace. And therefore, we would like the public to be fully aware of the fact that perpetuating or spreading fake news, misinformation and disinformation is a criminal offense in terms of that particular legislation. So it becomes important that people, they understand that whilst we have a constitution that gives rights to the freedom of speech, the same constitution also doesn't give right to propaganda spreading, but also the rights, they come with responsibilities.
You speak about how, as government, you're creating awareness, more so ahead of elections. What platforms and what tools are you using to ensure that the education is widespread, that this awareness that you speak of is indeed one that reaches the citizens of this country?
The first part is we are partnering with media houses whereby we get to have a space and really empower the South Africans in terms of information that they have to have, plus also bringing into their own mind the issues around their responsibilities, but also trying to ensure that there's behavioral changes, because we have realized that the issue of misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and all that is spreading very fast, particularly with the enablers like the artificial intelligence. The second part is we have created a step-by-step guide that is guiding the public at large, but also on how to identify fake news, misinformation, and disinformation, and how they can report, but also how they can verify the information that they have, because once they continue also to spread the same information, they become part of the people who are contravening the legislation. So we've created that a step-by-step guide. We are sharing it in all government social media platforms, but it's also available on the digital platforms of government. The third part is we trying to reach out now to people in terms of the face-to-face engagements, whereby we do make it a point that we empower the citizens through information.
You speak about legislations that regulate the malicious communication, but we know that, of course, dealing with disinformation is a highly complex and nuanced issue, and one single law cannot effectively stop it. I mean, how best do you think the impact of misinformation can be minimized? You speak about artificial intelligence because, you know, the speed with which these things occur is really something that no law can immediately stop when it occurs at that particular time.
We do believe that one of the approaches that makes it to perpetuate a lot is when people are ignorant and people, they do not know what is right and what is wrong. Hence, we do believe that, first of all, by creating awareness to the people themselves, so that whenever a person receives information or data of some sort, they think twice before they spread it or before they forward it to the next person. And we do believe that that particular one, it really assists to restrict or to contain the spreading fast of the misinformation and disinformation. The second part is about people then understanding that there are consequences to what they would be doing. For an example, if you spread misinformation and disinformation, there are people that get hurt along the way, be it in terms of their own integrities and etc. And it is important that people, they understand that whilst it seems as if we are slow in moving and applying or enforcing the legislation, the reality is we are gaining more experience, and therefore people, they do not want to be the ones that get caught, because the reality is there are punitive measures that are applicable based on the legislation. The third area as well is whereby we trying by all means to make sure that we get into as many platforms as possible to create the same awareness, so that we make sure that there's minimization, particularly of the behavior, because we do believe that some people, they spread the misinformation in terms of thinking they are entertaining, not understanding the consequences that even if it's entertainment, but if it's fake news or it's misinformation and disinformation, the implications are the same.
And what should people look out for as they perhaps come across fake news, misinformation? What should they be looking out for specifically to understand that this cannot be true?
I think there are a few pointers. The first pointer is we have seen a spread of mushrooming of a number of fake websites. So people, they have to verify the source of the information that they have at hand. Is it credible? Is it coming from a credible author, a credible institution? Does it contain some grammatic errors or spelling errors or very unfamiliar websites? They also have to do a quick Google search, because sometimes you find out that whilst the information that is being shared is correct, but it is incorrect in terms of the context that is being shared for. So we are finding a situation whereby there are old videos and information that is coming through as if it is new. So a quick Google search will assist people to be able to see if that particular information was ever shared before. But also there are platforms, for an example, your WhatsApp CREP, which we have provided, and it's in the government a website, how to go about verifying the information that you get from WhatsApp on whether it is credible or not. And also if you pick up some disjunctures in terms of what is being shared, because sometimes you find just a very short clip. And the short clip, most of the time, it's usually disinformation, whereby people are perpetuating the information that they know that it is not providing the full context. So we then plead with people to find more information around that. And also, if it's a government-related information, we are pleading with the public to utilize the government platforms so that they be able to get credible information. I think the last part is about when you are really not sure about the credibility of the information. We have what we call Real 411, and we have provided a step-by-step guide as well in terms of how you can report such information, all information that is on the social media platforms that you are not too sure of, and particularly you have an indication that it might be fake or misinformation. Real 411. It does provide assistance in terms of how to report that information.
Very well. Thank you so much for that breakdown. Acting Director General at the GCIS, Nomonde Mnukwa, giving us that breakdown.